So we have arrived at our final unit, which deals with screens and the digital world. Okay, something that, of course, worries us all, concerns us all, both as therapists and as parents. And this time I'll go into a real concrete detail of our program. You'll understand why, okay? My idea in this unit is to really make you capable of doing this with your children or with your clients, okay? Whichever may be necessary. Okay. First of all, I want to make clear, okay, that my position regarding screens and internet abuse is a moderate position. Okay, screens are here to stay. Okay, we cannot and we should not develop an attitude of hostility to screens and thinking that, okay, it destroys kids' life or their personality or their development and so forth. If you do that, you'll be getting into a kind of a quixotic undertaking that will get you into conflict with your child. And I think we should understand that screens are now an inherent part of our life and of our children's life, and we cannot simply keep complaining about that or opposing that on ideological ground. It is also important to understand that arguments, explanations, preaching that's not only useless, that's quite damaging. It leads very often to deterioration of the relationship with the child. It leads to escalation. The positive influence is generally nil, to the contrary. I also don't think that the best idea is to stipulate a fixed number of hours. Like, for instance, okay, you can use the computer for 2 hours a day, because this kind of stipulation puts the parents in the role of a police, and they have to check all the time, and there all time discussion, oh, this is not true, this was homework and things like that. So we think that it is quite an unfruitful course of action. I think it is much better to decide that we shall intervene according to two things when we see that the child is being exposed or is utilizing damaging context or damaging side, and we see clear signs of functional impairment. What kinds of damaging context? First of all, dangerous context. If we see that the child is getting in touch with people who say strange things through the internet. Okay? In Israel, it's very common. There are some rabbis that have an enormous influence and they are very extreme. The same thing is, of course, about radical kinds of contact, be that from ultra-nationalist, ultra-religious groups and so forth. Then another kind of damaging events is sites with pernicious messages and information. We'll detail what these can be. Temptations, okay, the child is actually flooded with temptations, with offers, okay, both of the consumer society and also to all kinds of dangerous activities. Cyberbullying, okay, cyberbullying, either being witnesses, being participants, or being victims. So cyberbullying is a dangerous thing. Stealing of information, this is an everyday event, okay? We and our children are often asked for our code name or passwords and so forth, username, and pernicious exposure. Children, adolescents very often expose themselves in ways, tell things about themselves or show things about themselves that can be. So those are the major damaging contexts. We'll see how we approach it. And then in functional impairment, we propose the use of very clear-cut criterion. First of all, if really we see clear evidence that the child's scholastic school life is being badly affected. He has difficulty waking up in the morning. He's all the time at the computer. He doesn't do his homework. Family, he doesn't participate in family meals or is there with his cell phone all the time. That's functional impairment of the family life, social life. If he stops altogether socializing completely, okay, we don't think that there is but a minimal social life should remain apart from the computer and health, of course, of the child. Okay, is this is a stopping, is not sleeping enough, or is okay sitting so much this sedentary life that is deteriorating physically. This is functional impairment. Self-withdrawal, okay, children who really withdraw completely from all kinds of activities, sometimes totally from real life in favor of the virtual one. This is the final one. And the dangerous internet activities like gambling, okay, of course, and sometimes there's some kinds of gaming that become invasive, all pervasive, and the child becomes absolutely obsessed by that kind of activity. Okay, so these are our criteria. Those are the criteria for intervention. And what we propose is an intervention that is based on our concept of vigilant care. And we have developed a systematic intervention. We have not only developed, we have developed also a treatment module or treatment manual. And we have done a study on this information, on this intervention, and I'll be telling you about it, okay? Vigilant care, you know already about the 3 levels of vigilant care: open attention, focused attention, okay, one-sided steps, okay, unilateral steps. And let me tell you what are the major elements of this intervention. I'll get into considerable detail this time so that you really become able to read this again, okay, to read this presentation again, and to plan, okay, those activities on your own. The first step of the intervention, and this belongs to the stage of open attention, you always begin there, is that you ask your child, you have a conversation with your child. Actually, it's quite a long conversation. We propose that this should be done in 2 meetings with the child. In the first one, you ask your child for a tour of the internet, of his internet activities, what he does in the internet. You say, look, okay, the computer and the internet are so important in your life. And I acknowledge that. I respect that. And I would like to know more. I'm curious about it. So I want to ask you for a favor. I want to ask you to give me a tour, like a tourist tour of the internet. Okay, you are, let's say, the native, okay, of the internet, and I'm the tourist. So you show me what you do. Now, you can show me only the things that you want. You can prepare for that. If there are sites that you don't want to show me, you don't show me. Okay, if you want to show me your Facebook page, you can omit anything from this tour. So I want you to feel sure that I'm not spying on you. I'm not trying to get information. I'm really curious. I want to get closer to you. Now, most kids agree to this request. The vast majority. Okay, in our study, which was the study with kids that already had shown problematic use in the sense of functional impairment, 95% of the kids agreed to this request for a tour. And these are children who are already using the internet in problematic ways that are causing dysfunction. It's very important that your attitude during the tour is really curiosity. You ask questions, you don't try to get information, you don't try to warn the child against anything. You have time to do that later, okay, in the second conversation. So keep an open mind. If the child shows you games, okay, it's very important to try to understand what the games are. If he plays role-playing games, for instance, not enough that he says, oh, I play all kinds of role-playing games. Okay, you would never accept an answer of a child, oh, I play all kinds of games with a ball about this sports activity. You want to know what? Okay, show me. I want to know how, what. And actually, when the child starts showing him, pay attention to the skills that he has and ask him about the difficulties and ask him, Okay, what is his level? How did he get? How did he acquire the skill? What is it? Motor skills, planning skills, sometimes also, okay, more complex cognitive skills. This is very important doing that. And try to understand what is the pleasure that the child is getting from that activity. Don't be dismissive, okay? Not at all. Try to put yourself actually into the shoes of the child and understand what is going there. And then you have a second, and you say, okay, I want to have a second conversation with you. Okay. I want to tell you what are my concerns, but again, I promise you, I won't start preaching. Okay. I won't start demanding. I will want to tell you what are my concerns and a few requests. And the last stage in this process is proposing that the child sign a contract. Why? In this case, we think that the contract is a good idea. In general, we say the announcement, for instance, no contract. Okay, in general, when we speak about the new authority, it's not based on agreements. Okay, it's part of parenting is based on agreement, but the new authority is not based on agreements. Okay, that does not. But here we think that the contract has an important role to play. So let us see. Okay, so we have already described how that first meeting should take about an hour and a half. Your tour, okay, the child is your guide, and you are the tourist. You only want to learn. Okay, you developed an attentive and, if possible, a respectful and admiring stance, trying to understand what are the challenges and what he's good at. That's very important. You find out what he's good at, and you may discover quite interesting things. Now comes the second session. The second session, you are going to, and you go with the child. You can sit with the child at home, or you can go with him to a nice place. You can take him, okay, to a coffee house. You can. You said this time, I am going to ask you some questions, not to spy on you. You give me whatever information you want. Okay, you're not under interrogation. That's not it. Okay, I'll ask you and you answer me if you want. Okay, the first field is the field of context and solicitation for problematic activities. So you ask, has a stranger ever tried to contact you? Has anyone ever tried to interest you in forbidden activities? Have there been attempts to interest you in gambling, drugs, or sexual activities? How do you exercise caution against that? Has anyone ever written to you in a way that made you feel uncomfortable? What will you do if that happens? Okay, you make those questions and don't start warning, you just ask them. And you keep telling him, look, you answer me when you feel free to do so. Okay, I'm not going to interrogate it. This is not what I'm doing now. And then you tell what is your position. You can understand why I'm asking these questions. Many children have been tempted into harmful meetings or activities. I want you to know that if anything like that happens, I will support you and help you protect yourself or get out of trouble. If anything like that happens, tell me. And I promise I will not be angry, but support you, okay? You're stating your position. Now, will this necessarily mean that the child will do that? No, not always. But you're creating a joint scenario, a scenario for these situations in the mind of the child. Now you have this joint scenario. Having this joint scenario means that if such things happen in the future, chances are pretty high that the child will be reminded of this conversation that he had with you. And this is true about all of the other areas of problematic interventions and contents that I'll be presenting to you. We create this joint scenario, and this creates that kind of mental presence, mental accompaniment. The child will think about you if that happens because you mentioned that together, because you talked about it together. Okay? Here is another problematic field, the field of purchases. Have you bought anything online or with your smartphone? Have you downloaded for pay applications, okay, applications that you have to pay something, even a very small amount for them? Have you ever given out our credit card details? Okay, you ask that. And then you say, we want to agree with you that if you get our consent to buy something with our credit card, it applies only to that purchase. We, of course, check the charges on our credit card. But you need to know how to avoid getting into such inextricable situations. Sometimes very difficult to get out of a commitment that you did innocently with your credit card. Okay, again, you are preparing this joint scenario. And also you're telling yourself that you have to check the charges on your credit card. Okay, you know, the internet is also a very dangerous place. Okay, financial things can happen there that are okay, very complicated. Then you come with a list. Come to this meeting with a list. Okay, don't expect to remember spontaneously all of those things. On the contrary, you can say, well, now I want to talk to you about, and you look at your list. Okay, I want to talk to you about information theft. And the child will be impressed that you prepared yourself for this conversation. It means you're taking the thing very, very seriously. And so information theft. Has anyone tried to get you to give them your username and password? Of course, okay. It happens to everybody every few days. Often outside parties try to get your information, supposedly in order to improve the services they give you, but it is usually false pretense. Their real goal is to obtain your username and password. Has anyone asked you for this information, saying that they want to improve your service? And again, you start with questions, open questions. You are curious. If a conversation develops, okay, you know, the child may start, well, but I know what the site is and so on. It is only for this and this. Okay, if you absolutely know that is something, but if you don't know for 100%, then you can say, please do not ever give your username and password unless you are 100% sure of you giving them to. Don't respond to any request for information about you by email or text. It's almost always for pernicious purpose. Again, you're creating a joint scenario. And afterwards, then you go on living, and something like this happens to you. You can call your child and says, look at this. You know what is this? Okay, it's obviously they're trying to implant something into my computer. Okay, they're trying to get me to enter this email and to and that's what is called a Trojan horse. Was a Trojan horse? They get into my computer and then they can make use of the whole information. So because you open the issue and you talk to the child, then when it happens to you, you can say, I want to show you something. Look, you remember we talked about it? So see what's happening here. Okay, cyberbullying. Oops, cyberbullying. Has anyone insulted you or slandered you on Facebook or another social network? Has such things happened to your friends, your classmates? Has there ever been an attempt to boycott someone you know on Facebook? How would you respond if such a thing happened? Again, you're creating a scenario. Then you read about such an event and you say, look at this. You can talk about it so that the conversation is being renewed when you stumble on events that remind you of the conversation. This reinforces that scenario that joins it, but it's very important not to preach. Avoid that preaching tone. That preaching tone creates a defensive reaction, the kind of the child that says, oh, my parents, oh, you don't want that. So you said, I need you to know how to protect yourself and how not to get caught up in online bullying or boycotts. If such a thing happens, you must tell me. I promise to help. And if you ever do get into trouble, I will do everything I can to help you without shaming you. Okay, you're telling it, and you stop it. You don't wait for the child to say, I'll do so. Don't do that. Keep it open. You're actually giving the child a chance of doing that. But more important than giving the child a chance of doing that, you're establishing this kind of common scenario in your mind. You see, now we are really going over all of the concerns, the most important concerns about problematic use of the internet. And you prepare yourself. and you bring with you all of those questions. Okay, don't be spontaneous. You can be spontaneous afterwards when things remind you of this and this, and then you get into a conversation. Okay, many times self-exposure. Many times children expose things about themselves on Facebook or blogs that they're sorry about later. Do you think any of your friends have exposed anything they might be sorry about in the future? See, it's a very good idea to begin with friends. Okay, you talk about them, so it's easier. Okay, do you think anyone exposed things that can hurt them in the future, like when they look for a job? Okay, the child doesn't know, but an adolescent may already know. Okay. If friends expose something you thought was problematic, would you be willing to warn them if you thought it was inappropriate? Don't tell them do it. Tell him, would you be willing to do it? Would you be a loyal friend not telling him, or would you be a loyal friend telling him about it? Okay, this is an interesting discussion. Okay, and then after asking those questions, if you ask them without really trying to force yourself into the child's mind, then you can say it is important for you to know that things that you reveal about yourself can hurt you in the future. There are companies that specialize in collecting such information. And one day you may discover that outside parties know things about you that you wouldn't want them to know. We want to make sure you know how to be careful and not get tempted by the urge to expose things about yourself in order to get a sympathetic response or to impress others. Such things can cost you dearly. Okay? This will not impede the child from doing those things. It will reduce the risk. It will reduce the risk. And it will create that kind of accompaniment that you want, that kind of mental presence. Okay? So you see, we're getting into detail, virus and Trojan horses, how to protect yourself against virus. Okay? What do you do about it? And while we want to tell the child, do not open any message if you're not completely sure who sent it. Sometimes even a message from someone you know can be harmful because it's not really this person that is sending it, but someone who stole her identity. If there's anything weird about the subject, something that doesn't seem suitable to the person supposedly sent it, don't open. And then you get one of such messages, okay, somebody that's fishing for money. Okay, I got stranded on that country without money, and sometimes, okay, from the email address of one of your friends. Okay, you get there and say, what do you think about this? That's all what you say. But of course, it's not him. I know that he is in Israel, and he's not there. He's in the UK. He's not somewhere, so it cannot be from him. Or even, okay, if he's a strange person, he says, okay, those are companies that specialize in doing, okay, this kind of thing. Okay, illicit sites. Okay, of course, that's one of the major worries. Have you come across pornography? If you haven't run into it yet, you will for sure. If not on your computer, then on your friend's computer. How do you think you'll respond if you're invited to look at such sites? You don't try to get a promise that you won't do it. Okay, if you get a smile, bashful smile, that's enough. That's enough. Have you run into sites that offer gambling? These are pretty important. Okay, some kids get in trouble with that. How would you respond to that? If you come across sites that glorify drugs or crazy diet, okay, how would you respond to that? There are tons, and then, okay, you get that. You're not doing a cross-examination. You're not. It's not for the information. Those questions are not designed to get information from the child, okay? They are designed to establish a common denominator, this common joint scenario in your mind, and to prepare the child for this kind of events. Okay, if you think that you want to get answers, true answers to that, it is the wrong attitude. Okay, there are tons of sides. Then you say, okay, what is worrying you? What is your concerns? Where your position? This is important. There are tons of sides that overwhelm you with pornography. I know you're going to run into it. It's inevitable these days. I want you to know that pornography is not like healthy sex. It's completely fake. These people are not enjoying themselves, but doing it only for money or for drugs. You should know that pornography is one big lie. Also, you must not be tempted by sites that try to seduce you into gambling, drugs, crazy diet, and other dangerous things. These just things are offered to you. It is important for us to know. Trust us that we'll do everything we can to help you. And then you can sometimes get such a strange invitation, okay, to some kind of trap. There are many internet traps. I and my wife, we fell into such a scam. Okay, we wanted so much a a puppy of an Australian Shepherd, and then we found somebody offering a puppy of and we started a dialogue with this person, and it was complete person. She was a very nice person, and she had to send it over from Cyprus. She said that in Cyprus people have bad relationship to dogs. Okay, so that's why she's looking for somebody in Israel because she was in Israel for 1 year. Okay, doing an internship in medicine. Okay, so it was so, and everything was so personal. It couldn't be. And then she said, "Okay, I'll send it to you. And the only thing that you have to pay is for the transport. Is not very much, and the crate. Okay, it was about uh, 300 pounds, 300 British pounds. And we said, "Oh, no, it can't be that somebody cheating us for this amount. This would be ridiculous." Okay, so we paid that. Okay, there were strange things, but we wanted that so much that were actually the ideal clients for such a scam. But then after we paid that, they asked us for a different kind of thing, and we had to pay more. And then we understood that we had fallen for something. We still were not completely sure. So we asked the person for a Zoom interview. We should have done it before, but we didn't do it. Well, and then she continued corresponding with us for a while. Okay, and only later we knew that were other people who had fallen to similar scams in other wish areas that they had. Okay, there are companies that are doing that 24 hours a day with a whole team. Okay, okay. So after all of this conversation, let's take 2 meetings. Okay, that's what we do in our intervention. Okay, then the child is requested to sign a contract. Now, why? Why in this area? We think that signing a contract is a good thing. Why do you think it is right? Because the child knows full well that when he gets a service like an application, he is asked to agree to the conditions of that application. So you're giving the child this service of the internet. And so it's the same. You ask him to agree to the conditions of this service. So you can really, the moment you ask for a contract, you're putting things on the table in a very open way. You're creating a lot of clarity in an area, which only tends to remain in the case. It's self-evident, of course, we know. No, you're clarifying. We've never spoken clearly about ways to make sure you're not hurt by your use of the virtual world, but we've reached a conclusion it's necessary. We provide you with your computer, smartphone, and internet service, and we must make sure you do not use them halfly. So we want to ask you to sign an agreement with us that will protect all of us. I got this proposal from experts in safe computer internet use. Please read it and tell me if you want to add anything. Now, we're making this very concrete. I'll tell you why. Okay, this whole intervention is like a summing up of so many of the things that we have been doing that we want once we really want to get into the concrete details how you do it from beginning to end. So here is the contract that we propose to parents. The parents' commitment: we commit ourselves to being available in case you require help with difficulties or dilemmas regarding the digital world. Our decisions regarding rules and limitations will take the importance of the internet in your life into consideration. We know that it is important. We'll be vigilant about possible dangers because it is our utmost duty as parents to care for your safety. We won't spy behind your back. All our activities will be carried out in the open. And then the child's commitments. Okay, if he signs this, we are a step ahead. Again, it is not a guarantee, but increases the chances that he'll protect himself from those kinds of risks. I won't visit sites that are off bounds to me specifically. I won't visit pornography or gambling sites or sites that propagate drugs or any damaging activity. I'll tell you immediately if anything happens that causes me offense or shame. I won't meet with strangers whom I met over the internet without your knowledge and permission. I won't use the computer or smartphone in ways that may damage my sleep, my ability to function at school, or my homework. My virtual activities won't come at the expense of family activities such as meals, family meetings, or family outings. I won't give details like my username and password unless I'm absolutely sure about the site that is requesting. I won't give credit card details or make any purchases without your express permission. I won't give information of an intimate nature about myself or my family. I'll consult with you regarding details that I may provide. And signed, your name, child's name, date. Sometimes it's also a good idea to have a witness to the contract. Okay? Okay. Grandfather, grandmother. And it is not that you come with the contract, you see. No, the contract is part of this attempt to create a mental accompaniment. You're not going to do a judicial fight if he goes over one of the clauses. That's not what it's going to do. But of course, there are conditions. What the contract is actually, if we think we are talking about the grades, the levels of vigilant care, the contract is the second level, focused attention, clarification, specification, we look at it, okay? But there is also the third level, which sometimes is necessary, okay? We found out in our study that less than 50% of the parents, and those were already kids who were using the virtual world problematically, less than 50% of the parents had to get into this issue of unilateral steps. And as you remember, you always have to prepare for that. Okay? You don't do that spontaneously. You take a long breath. There are signs of danger. We saw those signs of danger. Okay, we perceive them, they are clear. So now you have to prepare. Then you announce your limits. Okay, you have a typical announcement. We are aware of the computer's importance in your life. Lately, however, the computer has become so dominant that you're neglecting your school duties and impairing your sleep. We'll do all in our part to stop those pernicious aspects and guarantee that you're using the computer in a positive way. We won't stay alone in this, but get the help of anyone who can help us. We do this out of our absolute duty and devotion to you. Okay, so this is an announcement, a full announcement, but don't imagine that the announcement in itself and by itself will do the job. Okay, you have to act upon this announcement. So you prepare, to a long, term activity. You have to really check again and again, and you get support and legitimization. When you're getting abusive use of the computer or screens, you need support and legitimization. It's a field in which you need really a lot of legitimization. Why? Because the child says everybody does it. This is the normal activity. All my friends are doing it. So you need to build some parental weight against this. All my friends are doing it. So they say, no, what I'm doing is not arbitrary. There has been damage already. And our duty is to prevent damage. And there are situations in which you have to stop the internet service. You announced it before. You get supporters, but then, you stop it. You stop the internet service. You stop to pay for, the cell phone, for use of the cell phone. It takes preparation to do that. Parents are worried. What will happen? There are all kinds of worry scenarios. Now, here you have to be prepared for that. It is very good to have, some guidance on doing that, or at least support of friends, of the serious support of friends. But we had many cases in which the parents had to stop. They had to stop the internet at night, they had to stop it. Then they stopped the router, they stopped the Wi-Fi. Or sometimes the child was continuing to use it, they took out, for instance, the mouse of the computer. Stopping to pay for the cell phone is very important. But the parent says it's not so much money. The child will pay on his own. That's already better. So we're not going to be concerned now with the implementation of these serious one-sided steps. We have already considered them. We have to build our positive power, support, persistence, self-control in order to do it. It is always a we that does it, not an I that does it. Okay, so this is important as preparation. Only in this case, okay, I have mentioned already lots of studies that we have done. I'd like to give you, okay, we've made this study. It was a group intervention according to the guidelines that I've described. It was a group intervention, 3 sessions of 1.5 hours each, so very short. After the 3 sessions, parents were allowed to receive 2 phone calls from us once a month after. Okay, that's all, to remind and to ask for difficulties. Now I want to give you, and this is an important study because it was the first study in the whole literature in which, okay, the results of the study are completely objective. They're not based on reports by the child or the parent. They're based on data given by the server, provided by the server, with the child's and the parent's agreement. But we got those data. So we know exactly what happened with the child's daily use in hours. Okay, this is parental vigilant care group. Okay, this is the lower one. Okay, the full line. And the broken line is the control group. Okay, didn't get this intervention. Those are weeks, and that's the number the number of hours per day. See, at the beginning, okay, on the average, on the mean was between 5 and 6 hours use a day. Cell phone use in this case. That's where we got the data. And see what happened with the experimental group. We went down to an average of less than 2 hours a day. Okay, and not increase of the computer use. Okay, that we checked by reports with. And what is no less important, there was also a reduction in dangerous and problematic sites, very much all kinds. There was quite a list of problematic sites. And what is very important, it shows something about vigilant care, about a model of vigilant care. There was a reduction in parent-child conflicts about the internet. The parents were increasing their vigilant care, their presence in this area, and there was a reduction in conflict. Okay, that's what our model hopes to get, and we got a considerable reduction. In the control group, there was no reduction. Okay, there was another control group in which the parents established a filter, and then there was a drastic increase in conflicts with the child, okay, because of the filter. So we are getting here increased parental presence and vigilant care and reduced conflict. We also got signs, clear signs that the child was internalizing. There were signs of internalization. I'll give you one result that's very important and very interesting in this respect. Okay, at the beginning, we had all kinds of self-report by the parents and by the child. Okay, the parent said the child does this, the child does this, the child does this, and the child said, I do this, and there was a big disparity. Okay, big disparity. That means they were seeing reality in very different terms. Okay. The parents, okay, now after the treatment, okay, this disparity was tremendously reduced. That means the parents knew better, okay, and the child was thinking similarly to the parents about their activities. They were reporting. So those are signs that something is seeping into, okay, the mind of the child, okay, that these concerns are becoming self-protective, that vigilant care is turned gradually into self-care. Okay, so I think this is an apt summing up of our approach, particularly because it is of concern to all of us, and we shouldn't think about parental presence, vigilant care as something that is only clinical, only for children, okay, that are really in high levels of danger, that those are very much helped. Parents of those children are very much helped, but also, okay, about children that are in the more normative, okay, that they're not in special dangers, but, okay, they are, of course, also bombarded by all kinds of temptations, again, problems of our modern society. Thank you very much.